Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Episode of Living the Gospel of Life. I'm your host, Leticia Velasquez, and let's open, as we always do, with a prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. O Mary, bright dawn of the new world, Mother of the living, to you do we entrust the cause of life. Look down, O Mother, upon the vast numbers of babies not allowed to be born, of the poor whose lives are made difficult, of men and women who are victims of brutal violence, of the elderly and sick killed by indifference or out of misguided mercy. Grant that all who believe in your Son may proclaim the gospel of life with honesty and love to the people of our time. Obtain for them the grace to accept that gospel as a gift ever new, the joy of celebrating it with gratitude throughout their lives, and the courage to bear witness to it resolutely in order to build, together with all people of goodwill, the civilization of truth and love, to the praise and glory of God, the Creator and Lover of life. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. I have the pleasure of interviewing today a longtime friend, Tamara Musella. Tammy is a mom of two, Michael, who's 19, studying engineering, and a 15-year-old daughter, Mary, who has Down syndrome. Tammy's married and lives in Long Island, where she is very active in her Italian-American parish, St. Bridget's. She helps run their, the Feast of the Assumption. Right, yes. Right, Tammy? Yes. Tammy is a contributor to A Special Mother is Born, and she helped sponsor the book. We self-published the book back in 2011, and the week we published it, and this is something that was in the works for years, and I couldn't get it going. It's my first book. The week we published it is when non-invasive prenatal testing for Down syndrome became available. So God knew when he wanted that book published. And our friend, Dr. Brian Scottco up at Mass General Hospital in Boston, also published a survey that week. Now, he knew what was going on, unlike me. I was just going flying blind with the Holy Spirit leading me. But Dr. Scottco published a survey in the Journal of American Genetics. And what the survey said is that 99% of parents who have children with Down syndrome are happy with their children. 99% of these children are happy with their lives, as children and adults, and 97% of the siblings. You know, they often use this as an excuse to the parents to abort a child with Down syndrome. You can't do this to the siblings. 97% of the siblings in his survey said they're better people because of their sibling with Down syndrome. So I can tell that Tammy agrees. So tell us, Tammy, 15 years ago when you were expecting Mary, before you knew that she had Down syndrome, what was your faith life like? Were you a practicing Catholic?
Practicing Catholic. We were very active in the parish. We were active in our parishes before we were even married. So we had a firm foundation before we even before Mary came into our lives.
Oh, that's great. But still, that sometimes it doesn't mean it's not going to knock you for a loop, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So how'd you find out? Right, because very few of us, as Catholic as we may be, picture ourselves dealing with a child with special needs. It seems like somehow there's saints out there that God picks out of a select coterie of saints that are just pre-made to raise a child like that. At least that's what I thought. I'd see those moms in church with a special needs son or daughter and say, gosh, they're amazing. You know, God picked them because they're holy. And if they could have talked to me, I think what they would have said, you should have seen me 20 years ago when my kid was born. Right. I was, that holiness was kicking and screaming, God pulling them little by little, one sacrifice at a time, like he does with all of us, right? We grow slowly, and how do we grow? By being stretched and asked for a little bit more and a little bit more. So you found out, how did you find out that Mary had Down syndrome?
I was going into, I had one miscarriage prior to her. I had Michael first, and then I had a miscarriage, and they said that it was later on, and they said the child, the baby died inside of me. It wasn't forming properly. So, of course, when Mary was forming inside of me, I was very cautious because I didn't want to lose another baby. So we were doing, and the doctors were cautious also. So we were going in for a lot of sonograms and things like that. And they could tell very early on that her heart wasn't forming. So just with that alone, they said things don't look right. There's something possibly with her neck, and there's this look like her heart is pumping correctly. They're like, do you want to do more testing? And I did.
So this is a sonogram at this point. It was ultrasound. There was nothing invasive yet. So they were looking for you to do an amnio? Is that what they were saying?
Yes, exactly. And I personally had no problem with that because I knew I wasn't going to abort the baby, but there was something the doctors could do beforehand, or if I could prep myself beforehand.
Those are the advantages.
I felt it was positive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Prepare yourself, prepare your doctor, especially if there's a heart defect. Sometimes they need a crash cart or NICU doctor at the ready.
As soon as they're born,
Sometimes they do. They are born with severe life-threatening abnormalities, children with Down syndrome.
Absolutely.
Not everyone, but some, and I think it's 40% have a heart defect at birth. Chrissy did, but it resolved itself. But anyway, so you were preparing yourself. And as I had said to you earlier, there's nothing wrong with prenatal testing. The reason I mentioned that the book came out that week is, unfortunately, some people feel pressure to abort.
Yes.
So what was your experience?
Well, there was pressure. The doctors certainly weren't on the same path I was at all. When I was doing the testing, I was mentally preparing myself for something and how to take care of the child. They took a completely different stance, unbeknownst to me till afterwards, that they were going to prepare me for an abortion.
Wow.
So we were on
67% of moms choose abortion in America after diagnosis. So more than half, I'd say 2/3 of moms that discover a child has Down syndrome before birth will abort. That is the accepted. So that's a pretty high percentage. So you can't, especially in a metropolitan area like New York, I think the percentage should probably be higher. So that is their expectation in this area, at least.
Well, because they, in my case, I can't speak for everybody, but in my case, there certainly was misinformation. There was the doctor's opinions being based on this.
Wow. What did he say?
As I mentioned in the book, we worked on together, that they said that this baby will be nothing but a problem to you and to society. This would be nothing but a burden was the exact word they used. This child would be nothing but a burden to you and society.
Yikes.
And I was
eugenic
flabbergasted.
right there.
I mean, it was. I never even expected in a million years to go into the doctor's office and hear those kind of words.
That's
and I was
horrific.
I was like, how could you say my child's going to be a burden to me? I don't know about society, but certainly not me. And so let's just say that I signed off on those papers and found another doctor. But
so how many months
pregnant were you
and you had to find another doctor? That's horrible. 5 months.
Right,
and it must have been hard because nobody wants to take you on that late in pregnancy, right?
Right. It wasn't because I was very weary. I didn't know who I wanted to trust. I was like, what do I do? Where do I go? You're kind of floundering in water. When I did find, I went a couple of interviews for doctors. I said, I'm keeping the baby. Just so you know, if you have any problems with this, you got to tell me right now, because this is non-optional. So I did find somebody by the grace of God. They did lead me into, God led me into someone's hands who was very caring and smiled when Mary was born.
Oh, it'll make you cry. But that's just terrible. Like, you said that you felt like you were surrounded by sharks, like you were on a desert island surrounded by sharks. What a horrible feeling. You're dealing with, and it's a blow to find out your child is not perfect, and we all expect a perfect child. And then you're dealing with all the emotions that you have to deal with. That you're disappointed, you're frightened, you don't know what to expect, you're confused. Then you have people telling you your child's going to be a burden. I mean, that's just awful. There's no excuse to that. And our friend Dr. Scott Coe goes around the world to speak to medical students and doctors to say, let's deliver this diagnosis with more professionalism and not be injecting our opinion into it. And let's give a true picture of what life is like with Down syndrome, not a 1960s picture where everybody was in an institution and nobody expected anything of them. Because, the more you expect of someone, the more they perform. And your daughter is certainly an example of that. So you poor thing, at least you got to have a birth where the child was welcomed into this world. Thank heavens. My doctor was surprised, but he was. I heard like a deafening silence, and it was an operating room because she was a C-section, and I thought she was dead. And I looked around, and there she is, pink and kicking in the little crib. I was like, so. And he didn't want to tell me because he gave it to the nurses to tell me. And and they told me very clinically, your child has symptoms consistent with Down syndrome. And I'm like, yeah, I know. They're like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Because I did have prenatal testing. Like, well, yeah, I kind of did. So, because I had that spiritual insight. But anyway, when the doctor finally did come to my room, he was apologetic. I was like, what are you apologizing for? You did nothing. You delivered a healthy baby, right? But somehow doctors, sometimes they feel like it's their responsibility to deliver a healthy baby. And, it is to have a safe delivery. Yeah, that is a responsibility. But if the baby had a genetic abnormality from conception, that's hardly the doctor's fault, is it?
It's not. And I always laugh because I always told people when they would look at Mary or, whatever, they don't do it anymore, but when she was younger, they would look at her with such sympathy. And I'd be like, I know she wasn't born perfect. I said, but there's a lot of people running the world that were born perfect, and they're killing us.
That's right. That's right. If that's perfect, give me disabled, right? If some of those creeps that are born physically perfect, that are doing such horrible things,
horrible,
and are so lacking in compassion.
To society. Oh my gosh!
Well,
can you imagine?
There's a lot of disabilities out there. You don't see all of them, right? And,
my gosh, yeah. So this is an easy disability.
If you had to pick one. And how many of us later in life find things, starting to go wrong in our bodies, and we certainly don't want our family to say, oh, no, you got diabetes? Okay, you're a burden on society. You got to go.
You're done, sorry.
And because, like me, I'm on disability, and I am costing society something, but I like to think I give back in good ways, and certainly our daughters give back. So what was early life like with Mary when she was little, a little baby?
I cried a lot.
Yeah, sure.
I cried a lot. It was not so much that, in my eyes, she was beautiful.
She is beautiful.
She is beautiful. Thank you.
Send me a picture. I'll post it on my show page, and everyone can see what we're talking about. And smart.
She could do no wrong.
Smart. She's
very smart, and she's really. The reason it was so that I cried so much is I couldn't help her with so many things. Like I couldn't do the heart surgery for her. I couldn't help her recover as fast as I would have wanted her.
How old was she when she had it, Tim?
4 months old.
Oh.
And she was supposed to be in and out because it was like almost a typical surgery. I don't want to say typical, but they do a lot of these.
It's your baby at 4 months old.
It's not typical.
Nope.
So, and they predicted we'd be out in about a week, and a month later we were still there. She couldn't breathe on her own.
Oh.
And I just couldn't grasp this. Like every day you want to go to the hospital and just say, you want to hear that, she's doing much better.
Oh.
And it just wouldn't happen. And she was, being strapped down on the bed, because she couldn't suck her fingers, and because she was taking, the IVs out, and so all I did was cry. And those were the most.
Yeah.
That was horrific. Horrific.
Oh, sure. Nobody wants to go through that, for sure.
No. So that was horrific, and so she finally, her lungs started filling up, and she was able to breathe on herself, by herself after about a month, and after that, it was really that she, and to this day, has chronic constipation, and it's just like I just want you to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Right.
Like, go to the bathroom. This is a normal thing. I never heard of constipation until the child's born.
It's par for the course with Downs, unfortunately. We have
so
charts.
Things like this, you try to adjust to everything. You're like, oh, come on.
Yeah, right. I know.
So it's always been something. And and all I can do is, I always tell everybody, everybody is going to have something. It's always going to be something in life, but God will grant you the peace to get through it. Just ask Him for the peace.
If He gave you the baby, He's going to give you the grace to raise her. He didn't do it by accident.
Course.
And He knows who He's picking, although people told me that when my daughter was born. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. But, now I'm seeing. They saw something in me I obviously missed, or maybe potential in me. or maybe that I needed to grow. You ever wish a really tough kid on somebody because all their kids are perfect and they're like an expert on raising kids? I was an expert with the first child. The second child put me in my place and boarded my kid with Down syndrome and put me in my place. So it brought me a little more humility. Today's gospel is all about the apostles thinking they were going to run the world, and Jesus had to take them down a little bit. Well, we got two girls that do a good job of that, don't we?
Yes, they do. They humble me all the time.
Oh yeah. In good and bad ways. I mean, humble in that like you don't expect things and then they do them and then you're just flabbergasted, and then humble in that you think you're doing such a great job managing things and then they. My daughter slapped a little old lady's butt in the supermarket, and I was dying. I kind of wanted to laugh because it was a funny situation, but the poor old lady's reaction was utter shock. Because they always like to think that our kids are angels, right? I've been told. I can't tell you how many times I've been told that. I'm like, yeah, okay.
It's not an angel, trust me.
Well,
the teacher and I have always said, angels with tilted halos because
There's a little smirk on that angel smile, I tell you, because they have that sense of humor too, and they have that strong will, like we all do. But theirs seems to be a little bit stubborn sometimes.
A little stronger.
Yeah, a little stronger.
And
you know what?
That independence.
They crave their independence because we do too much for them, in their opinion.
Yes.
And sometimes they're right. But also, if they didn't have that strong will, they have some more to overcome than the typical kids. So maybe they need that strong will to fight.
Yes.
To fight to breathe,
absolutely.
in Mary's case, and fight to recover. In Christina's case, she's still fighting to speak. She lost speech a lot in 10 years old. She had some regression. She had a tough time in her life at school. So now we're fighting our way back, and we're doing well. We have a beautiful speech therapist. But again, it's more struggle than most kids have to do in an entire lifetime. So that fighting spirit, we come up against it as mothers, but we're grateful for it. We're definitely
for us as a mother, it's very difficult because we have to deal with it. But for them, it's a life skill, a strategy in life, how to get to where they want to get. So you can't put out that flame. It's hard to deal with on a daily basis, but they
keep from lighting up the cat,
Oh, my God.
She chases my poor kitty around the house. He knows when to avoid her when she's in that mood. And you're like, uh-oh. She's feisty today. I better stay out of sight. So she just likes to run around.
My husband and I, take turns dealing with Mary. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Your turn.
Right. You do need a respite sometimes. I'm lucky that I have my two adult daughters. Yes. One's away at school, but one is a nurse and the other's training as a nurse, and that comes in really handy because we have to give in 2 injections for Christina's. She has arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can imagine giving a feisty kid an injection is an all hands on deck kind of operation. You hold the legs, I hold the arms.
No way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And blood draws are even more fun. Do you have to go for blood draws?
Oh, no. Well,
you're fortunate.
I shouldn't say that. But we do go definitely one time a year for the endocrinologist. Sometimes, if I think she's a little off, we'll go for a second. But usually it's just annual. And by the grace of God, she's better now. It took 14 years to get her used to this. But now she goes in, she goes out, and it's like a miracle I have never seen before.
What do you pay her with? What do you pay her with? You take her out to Friendly's?
Of course,
ice cream,
do something.
Toys,
I always hold
Macy's.
I hold sour gummy bears in my hand. I'm like,
there you go.
Let's go, sour gummy bears. It's the same thing with homework, though. So.
Yep. So, okay, and here's the other thing. Tammy has homeschooled Mary for how many years? And she was doing fabulously.
I did it for 10 years.
Wow.
She was 10
right
years
with
of her
her peers in reading, wasn't she?
She's always had the gift of reading. She didn't have the gift of speech. She had the gift of reading and comprehension. And but reading she started doing, she would pick up a book around 2 years old. Wow. And she was trying desperately to sound letters out. And she can, to this day, I mean, the teachers are blown away. She reads incredible. But she can't put those words into a sentence on her own all the time. That she struggles with.
That's very interesting. I've heard that sometimes they can read better than speak, because the normal progression is for a child to speak and then read.
Right. No,
right.
No, she still struggles
but
with it.
But it's a different part of the brain. We're just starting to understand
part of the brain. She can read novels, and she will read. She'll read out loud, and you can hear the words, and she pronunciates them, and she just reads along on a basic novel for 15 years old. But you ask her a question, and she gets stumped, or she won't use those words that she has just read in a sentence.
Well, I will say one thing. I can write with words, and I can read words that I would never use in conversation. So to some extent, very few of us, we can read Shakespeare, we don't speak in Shakespeare. To some extent, we're all more limited in our speech. But, yeah, I can see with Down syndrome how that would be a little bit of a disconnect. Chrissy can sing along with all her favorite pop songs, mostly from Disney movies, but cannot necessarily repeat those phrases. Sometimes you're glad she can, in a sentence. I try and keep away from bad songs, but, they
I hear you. I know.
And that sometimes, she can't say it when she wants to, and speech it's always a bit of a challenge for them. But like I said, she's got a great new therapist that's opening up horizons. So it's never too late for things to improve, and there's so much research going on right now in Down syndrome. It's a very exciting time to have a kid with this challenge. So then Mary went in. Go ahead, sure.
Just a quick story, because it's very funny how their brains work, and like you said, Mary and Christy are the same with that they memorize every song, they memorize every movie, they can tell you the whole script from beginning to end. Right. So she was watching a Halloween thing very quickly, and the girl was having nightmares. It was Blue's Clues, and she was and the girl said, "You don't scare me," and the nightmare went away. So it's a very cute little show.
I've seen that one. Very
the Rickety Gates and things like that.
Right,
so it's cute. So, but how she applies it, she'll take those phrases and use them as she thinks needs be. And she went into school the next day. Yeah, you could start laughing right away.
I can tell.
She went to school the right way. And the teacher said, and Mary was in 8th grade, and she, transitions classes and so forth. And she didn't want to transition to the next class, and she just sat in her desk, in her chair. And the teacher said, "Well, Mary, if you don't cooperate and go to your next class, then you can't have iPad at the end of the day." And Mary turns to her and goes, "You don't scare me."
I know, Mary. I can see this coming. Oh, that's funny.
And the look on her face is so innocent. She's just copying something she did. That you don't scare me.
It's somewhat a little bit fresh, but it is kind of appropriate.
It comes across fresh. So the teacher calls me, and she's used to it now. And teacher calls me. She goes, "Well, what do I do?" I said, "I don't know. I don't scare her either."
I've been trying to for 14 years. I just can't do it. Nothing scares these kids. That's the problem.
So it was a very funny conversation, because the teacher was like, "What do you do after a child says that?"
Try not to laugh because it's so darn funny. Oh, my goodness.
Well, that's what she did. She walked out hysterical laughing in the hallway, and she came back and goes, "Okay, Mary, I'm glad I don't scare you, but
we're still not giving you the iPad if you don't." Oh, that's funny. They do. They have a presence. They do. Did you see that film of the little boy? I think he's about, 6 or 7, down in Australia. He's wearing a cap, and he goes up to Prince Harry, who's bending down to look him in the eye, and he grabs him by the beard and keeps stroking it. I mean, which one of us have the nerve to do that? It's adorable.
To stroke the prince's beard, I don't know. Yeah. And I knew he had Down syndrome as soon as I saw that. I'm like,
right. You didn't even see his face, but a little bit the body structure, but it's more the attitude, right? I'm going to check out this beard. I never seen a fuzzy red beard before. I got to know what it feels like. And Harry reacted beautifully. He just took it in stride. He's all cool about it, but. All the moms on my Facebook page were just rolling. They're just laughing. So that's the beauty of these kids, that they keep you on your toes, not only to find cures for all their little idiosyncrasies. You got to go to the endocrinologist. I spent a lot of time with a pediatric rheumatologist. I just had a wonderful session with a neurologist who's doing all kinds of studies. They're finding that Down syndrome may be an immune disorder, in the sense that autism is, that these kids, how they have all this autoimmune stuff, like arthritis, alopecia, different things, where their immune system is overactive and it attacks them. And so they found out that there's like 20 proteins that the third third copy of the 21st chromosome gives you more genetic material, right? You have more genes than the average person.
Yes.
So we call them designer genes sometimes. So they may have as many as 20 proteins related to the immune system over what they should have. So the immune system is on hyperdrive, and that can be bad, as when you get allergies and you get arthritis, but it could be good in that they almost never get solid cancer tumors. Because it's like they're constantly battling their system, just like they're battling us all the time. So it's very interesting that maybe some of the arthritis medicine I'm giving my daughter that lowers the immune system that you're all worried about in the commercials, they give you all this, maybe that's actually a good thing and help her body to stop fighting her. So maybe her body's given her so much jazz. Maybe that's why she feels she has to fight back. So it's a fascinating time. When my girl was born, a little bit before yours, the attitude of the scientific community is like, well, we can't deal with Down syndrome. It's too complicated. And only Dr. Jerome Lejeune was doing the research, and he died in 1994. But we fought, and a lot of parents have fought and funded research. So now research is moving ahead and trying to help these kids live more fulfilled lives. And it's exciting to see all these things. They're actually working on a vaccine against Alzheimer's with people with Down syndrome. A vaccine, and you know how many people that could help? Not just people with Downs. So that's just an amazing development. And our kids they're gonna be the generation that's going to change the syndrome, Down syndrome.
Absolutely.
They're really, and Mary's just going to be in the forefront. I can see her going around giving speeches. You know how she had to train her mother. How she had to teach her mother how to treat her, and I finally got. You're going to
tell everybody how she had patience with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. It's funny. But you're wonderful. Your sense of humor, Tammy Musella is on Facebook. You guys should all follow her because the stuff she puts on about Mary is hysterical. You have this dry sense of humor, and it just makes my day every time I read a Mary adventure, and I know it's going to be funny, and it's going to be something that I can relate to as a mom, just a mom in general. Because we all get these kids that, the one kid that sort of has our number and gets one over on us more often than not. And you love them, but they drive you nuts. And
oh, yeah, absolutely.
And yet you couldn't imagine life without them.
No, but you're thankful for bedtime.
You've had enough, right? Yep, you say, oh, thank heavens it's bedtime, if you can convince them it's bedtime. And we find melatonin very helpful. I make sure I don't take mine before she has hers. It's a natural herbal supplement that helps make you relax for bedtime, and we definitely find it very helpful with my daughter. But I just wanted to say, Tammy has helped inspire me with her daughter, and the great things homeschooling her daughter, because I've homeschooled my daughter twice since you did, on and off. I keep quitting, and they keep throwing her back. So, not really, they can't, but it's Chrissy's a hard match. She is very demanding.
No, exactly.
On her para, and it's hard to find the right environment for her. So what I've done is I have a setup where we have beautiful therapists, and I have a sister in full habit who does tutoring with Chrissy twice a week. She does an hour of tutoring and takes Chrissy to a class in a convent school. It's a very small school, so the girls all know her, and she's attended art class, home ec, music. Math didn't go too well last week. It's an interactive math class, and I was told she had to be redirected several times, and I'm wondering what kind of interaction she was doing, and the nun is not talking, so... I think that we better just leave that one alone. I don't think we'll be doing math again soon. Although I used to substitute in the sister school, the elementary school, and we brought her into school a few times when her schedule didn't jive. And she was doing Unifix cubes, just like we were doing at home, home and homeschooling. And she was doing great. She'd pass the papers back. She'd act really busy when everyone was taking the test. But that was middle school. Now we're in high school, and we're feeling our oats a little bit. So, math class was a no-go, but I think we'll stick to home ec, although that could be dangerous, too. No knives, no knives.
And it's all shaky, believe me.
Just keep her away from the stove, because my daughter likes to add to my soups. Yesterday I was making a wonderful carrot and butternut squash soup, and Chrissy thought it needed tomatoes, whole tomatoes. And a television remote.
Oh, ouch.
I do not recommend that soup. I turned my back to answer the phone and looked down and was like, what is that floating?
What's in my soup again?
One time it was a whole package, a whole container of pepper.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you've been there. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did she ever put something in your soup that actually improved the taste?
No, but she did put a whole head of lettuce and everything else you could find in the refrigerator into the pot roast. And I'm like, wow, it could taste good.
A jar of mayonnaise doesn't help us enough.
No, there was a lot of ingredients that said, nope, definitely was not going to help him add this meal. I said, we better order pizza. So.
Time for pizza. Oh, it's so
but her teacher certainly has a lot of comments about her. Mary's favorite thing about one of my favorite things that her teacher will call me about is she goes, yeah, we're trying to do some whatever, let's just say math. And she goes, Mary's very polite, but she goes, no, thank you, and pushes the paper away.
Like that ends it.
That's it. You have requested I do schoolwork, but I said no, thank you.
Oh, I love it.
And she's like, well, that's good manners, Mary. That's very good manners.
But she's not getting out of it.
No, thank you, I said.
She goes again, huh? Mine just crumples the paper up and tosses it.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you for the request of wanting to do schoolwork, but no, thank you.
I've got plans.
You got plans. It has nothing to do with schoolwork.
I would have forwarded that boy over there. I'm not interested in doing this boring math paper you're handing him.
Thank you, but no, thank you. It's some optional thing.
Oh, that is funny. So,
they will always keep us on our toes.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. And, it's funny, we don't get together that often. We live a few hours apart, but every time we do, our girls just seem to pick up where they left off and understand each other in a way that I just don't get. Tandy and I always relate, but the girls just seem to get each other. Like there's a hidden rules to a game, and they both understand it. And that's pretty unique because my daughter cannot stand boys with Down syndrome. She hates them. She's absolutely smack them every time she sees them. Like, stay away from me. I don't know what it is, but girls, fine. She's fine with. I guess she doesn't like.
Mary chases down all the boys.
Maybe you'd be grateful for that attitude, right?
I don't know.
She likes the older men. She does like her older men, and she can be a little flirtatious. But boys, maybe she thinks she wants an older man. Maybe that's what it is.
There you go. Mary chased them all down.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my God, you're gonna be my problem.
What does she do when she catches them?
She just stares at them. There's no conversation whatsoever. She just kind of come here. Fuck yeah, that's good.
So what do? Run?
They leave. Come here. Come here right now. Come here. I'm like, listen,
goodness.
I don't talk to your father like that, so I'm not really sure where you got that from, but...
Oh, yeah. No, you can't blame everything on us. Oh, that's so something.
And I'm like, Mary, please. Come on, Mary. Come on, we gotta go. It's like, I give up. It's my problem child.
So this burden on society is the light of your life. And the bane of your existence by turns, but mostly the light of your life. And you couldn't imagine, like I can't, you couldn't imagine life without them. They become the heart of your home and the boss in some way.
Yeah. Can't imagine it any other way. Wouldn't want it any other way.
There was a woman who wrote a letter to the doctor that advised her to abort her daughter with Down syndrome. And I often think, my doctor didn't do that, but his attitude when she was born was just terrified that I would yell at him. I really should write him a letter and say, here's what life is like. Maybe just send him our book and say, I didn't blame you at the time, but I don't want you to feel like all mothers will. Because I know some do. There was a mother before him who had blamed him. So he felt it was right for him to feel scared. And I think doctors, especially in an area with high litigation rates, we both have lawyers in the family, these doctors are afraid of being sued. And unfortunately, it has happened. There was parents in Oregon that sued the doctor for having a child with Downs, and they got millions. I don't say like $11 million. Like, what if that kid sued that one time? And the news, my parents sued because I was born, and the doctor didn't warn them to have an abortion. So in some ways, they're just trying to cover themselves. And
I understand.
So the more that we can reassure them that, life goes on, And it's not what you expect, but every child brings with it some challenges.
Yes, of course.
And sometimes the challenges come later in life. When my daughter was born, I reminded the nurses that this wasn't a kid that was going to come home pregnant or on drugs. I mean, there's a lot of things she's done, but that's not going to be one of them.
Opposed to this.
Yeah, she's not going to go goth, shoot up a schoolroom. I mean, look at all the advantages, right? She's not going to get a hot rod and terrorize the neighborhood. So she got in a car. I was looking for cars last spring, and I realized, holy cow, she's 16. If she didn't have Downs, she would be driving, and this terror just overcame me. And I said, oh, thank God, she doesn't know that. So until self-driving cars are available, we're safe. Until I can put her in the car and type in, go to Grandpa's house and lock the door someday.
You know what? Every kid is going to have its trials. There's no doubt about it. They all do. It's just that with Downs, I think people think it's a vanity issue, like they don't look like everybody else. But I hate to tell you, every kid's going to be an issue. It just is. For sure. So they're no different than anybody else. It's like almost you know what their issue is going to be. Right. But, yes, they're going to look different than everybody else. And I think sometimes that interferes with it because their looks.
Oh, yeah, that was the thing that really insulted me. The nurse came to my room when Chrissy was born in a Catholic hospital and said, there's things they can do to fix this. And they said, excuse me? And I thought they meant, because she had a small hole in her heart. I know they can do heart surgery. No, I mean her looks. And then she got my New York backup. I was like, what?
Don't even. So if my son was born normal and he had a big nose, does that mean people are going to walk up to you and say,
in the nursery, that can be fixed? Yeah. I was like, get out of here, And another nurse wouldn't push me down in the wheelchair because I had a C-section. Chrissy was ready to go home before I was. I was like, give me another day, please. I got 2 kids at home. And she didn't want to push me down because I had refused testing. Right. And she says, don't you know you're supposed to be tested? And I said, and why would that be a problem? She wouldn't say, but it was pretty obvious that was one of the ones that said you should have had testing because you obviously wouldn't have had that child. And
what's their idea of perfect anyway? I sit there
they are apparently because they put themselves as the judge of what's perfect, right? I mean, we're such a society that's diverse, right? We accept people with sexual orientations that differ, races, all these different things.
And look what
but
doing
Down
to the world.
syndrome is fine. I think it's finally getting some recognition in society. Like there's a show Born That Way, Born This Way.
Yes.
And there's actually a marriage recently. I don't follow it
There's
intensely,
a marriage,
but there was a marriage.
And they accept themselves perfectly. They don't look to change themselves in any way. No. I don't understand what this what society does. They have to look a certain way. Why? Has it worked for you? Because you're obviously born perfect with a perfect nose, perfect eyes, and you're out there getting plastic surgery.
Right. Or you're born perfect, and then you gain weight and mess it up, or smoke, or destroy your look somehow. I mean, come on. If I looked as good as I did, no, it doesn't end. We need to look at God with a more gratitude and say, thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for this child. I feel a little bit. If you haven't, you're expecting a child with Down syndrome. I don't feel up to this, God, but I know you know what you're doing. I mean, I told God he did know what he was doing, but I got over it. I said, wait, this is me we're talking about, okay? Leticia with no patience, okay? You sure you know what you're doing? And apparently he did. We were just watching the movie Evan Almighty, the silly movie where he becomes Noah. And there's a really deep motto to that. I don't know if you know, above all the silly animals and the ark and stuff.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, who plays God, is talking to the wife who had hightailed it out of there because she couldn't handle the long hair and the weird stuff.
Yes.
And he said, you prayed for your family to get closer. He said, this is my way of doing it. And he says, I don't give you, when you pray for patience, I don't have patience come down from the sky gift wrap. When you pray for... That's not how God works. He gives you challenges, and when you want to be a good mother, he teaches you by having someone that's going to test you and pull you and prod you, and make you exceed what you thought was ever possible. But he gives you the grace, and he gives you the family or the support system. And if not, there are a lot of people out there who want to adopt people with Down syndrome. There's actually a waiting list.
Absolutely.
And the Cincinnati
Absolutely.
Down Syndrome Association has an adoption specialty with Down syndrome. And I spoke to the director, and she said, yeah, there's people waiting. If they're so horrible, then why are all these people wanting? A lot of them have a child with Down syndrome, and they know what it is, and they love them.
Yeah.
I knew Barbara down in her name was Mommy Blog was her name, and she had I forget her last name. She was in D.C. and she adopted 2 young men with Down syndrome. They were as babies. She had 3. And her daughter made American Idol, and she showed her family, and so she was being interviewed a lot. But it was, she knew what the gift was, and she welcomed more. And it was just a wonderful family that really that embraced them. So I think society would be better if we all learned to just loosen up about this perfectionism, about
it's ridiculous.
About the the plastic surgery, and I have to be perfect, and this and that. That all comes from the silly commercials that we watch,
Absolutely. But, exactly that. And on the last note, I remember talking to somebody when Mary was born, and they were like, why would you decide to do something like that? I was like, you know what? I said, you have your perfect kids right now. They're all born perfect, and everything is wonderful. If years from now that child's driving, gets into an accident, or something happens, and they end up as a quadriplegic, do you throw them out, or do you still love them?
That's right.
And she just looked
we don't
at me.
know. We don't. Nobody knows.
At what point do you know that your child's always going to be perfect? And when do you stop loving them because they're not? And what does she say? What are you going to say to that? I was like, you have no guarantee in this life that your child is going to be perfect tomorrow, or perfect according to your standards.
Right.
So, and that was my thing for a long time. I would give that kind of, little example, and it would, shut people up. It would just be like enough that, they would think about, oh, I was like, I loved her since the day she was conceived. She can do no wrong in my eyes.
That's right.
Just because your child is perfect when they're born to your eyes doesn't mean she wasn't born perfect in my eyes.
That's right.
So that was it. That was the end of the conversation. I said, she is my perfect.
They need to think about where their values are and
what their value of perfect is.
And I feel and I feel sorry for their child because what if they don't live up to it one day? They don't get the PhD, or they don't go into marry the right person, or move in the right neighborhood.
And you see that happen. They're on drugs because they can't be good enough. They're not good enough to their families. That's horrible.
Or commit suicide, God forbid. How many kids are
committing suicide? We do see it out there.
Suicide rate among Down syndrome, I think it's 0. All right, they have no reason to kill themselves. They're perfect in their eyes.
They're perfect.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Tammy. It's always a joy to talk to you. She, like I said, Tammy will make you laugh if you follow her on Facebook. She's just so much fun. And if you don't mind, you can send me a picture of you and Mary, and we'll post it on the show page so everybody can see. And I don't do this enough. I don't plug our book enough. A Special Mother is Born. 33 stories from Catholic parents, mostly women, but a couple men snuck in there because they just had good stories. I couldn't turn down Patrick Coffin and Rick Santorum. They snuck in there, but mostly it's from a mom's perspective, because let's face it, we're the ones facing the most pressure.
Of course,
as the diagnosis comes in. So A Special Mother is Born. This is Down Syndrome Awareness Month. Give this to someone you love who has a special needs. It's not just Down syndrome. There's other stories in there. Just look it up on Amazon, and you can give this to someone that you love that might be facing a pregnancy with Down syndrome or something else. Well, thank you so much, Tammy, for coming on, and maybe we'll have you on another time when Mary does something else that we can talk about. Next week? All right, take care.
Oh, okay, God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to Living the Gospel of Life, full of life.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.